Hello, Mayor and City Council. My name is Jason Murado. I'm with ETC Institute, and ETC is a market research firm based in Olathe, Kansas, which is in the Kansas City area. And the thing we specialize in is doing community surveys for local governments all across the country. And today I'm going to go over the results of the 2020 Citizen Survey that we conducted for the City of Auburn. And we've been conducting your survey for about the past 15 years or so. Now, if you've seen the full report, it's very detailed and very comprehensive. So today what I'm going to go through is really the high-level key findings from the survey. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. So I mentioned that ETC Institute is based in the Kansas City area, but we're a national leader in providing market research for local governments. We've been doing this type of work for over 35 years, and in the last 10 years alone, we've conducted surveys in more than 900 communities and 49 states. So this is really the type of work that we specialize in. This is just a quick rundown of what I'll go through today. I will go over the purpose and methodology of the survey. What I call the bottom line up front is our main conclusions from the survey, and then I'll go through the major survey findings to show how we came to those conclusions. And normally at the end of this, I would take questions because I would be there in person giving the presentation. But given the circumstances, we're doing this by video today. So I believe you'll have the opportunity to email me with questions, and then I'll respond to those as quickly and thoroughly as I can. So there's several reasons to conduct a survey like this. One is to get an objective assessment of how satisfied residents are with major city services. This survey is also a great way to help determine priorities for the community, what residents feel are the top priorities. And then we're also able to measure trends from previous surveys. Each year we tweak the survey a little bit, but a lot of the questions remain the same year after year. That way we can measure the trends. And then we're also able to compare your results with other communities across the country. So just a little bit about the survey. The survey is 7 pages long, which is a pretty standard length for one of our community surveys. I mentioned it includes a lot of the same questions that we've asked before. The survey is administered by a combination of mail and online to randomly selected residents throughout the city, and that's our standard methodology for these types of surveys. Our goal was to get at least 600 completed surveys, and we ended up with 642, so we had a good response. And one thing we always do when we conduct these surveys is, as we're collecting the data, we check the demographics of survey respondents to make sure it reflects the actual population of the city. So we make sure we have a good representation by those key demographic areas, such as age, gender, race, and ethnicity. And the results of these 642 surveys at the 95% level of confidence has a margin of error plus or minus 3.8%. So essentially that means that if we conducted this survey the same way 100 times, 95 times the results would be plus or minus 3.8% from what we're reporting. So the results aren't perfect, but really it's a very small margin of error. So here we have a map of the city. The red dots are households that completed a survey. So we had a good representation really from all parts of the city. So here's our main conclusions from the survey. We found that residents have a very positive perception of the city. Just listed a couple of examples here. 95% of survey respondents rated the city of Auburn as an excellent or a good place to live, and 93% rated Auburn as an excellent or a good place to raise children. These are among the very highest numbers in the nation. We also found, once again, just like in previous surveys, that satisfaction with city services is much higher in Auburn than it is in other communities. You rated above the U.S. average in 57 out of the 61 areas that we compared. And we'll look at this in more detail in just a little bit. But in most of those areas, you rated significantly higher than other cities, such as 20, 25, even 30% or more higher than other communities in a lot of these areas. And then there's a couple areas that especially stand out. One is the overall quality of city services. Now, this is one of the most important questions on the survey because here we're asking residents to take into account all the different services that you provide and really give an overall satisfaction rate for how well you're doing. And in that area, you rated 36% above the U.S. average. Then another area that really stands out is the overall quality of customer service. There you rated 32% above the U.S. average. And then we found the top overall priorities are traffic flow and then maintenance of city infrastructure. And those were the top two priorities in the last survey as well. So first we'll take a look at just some general perceptions that residents have of the city. So we asked residents to rate their perception in a number of different ways. And you can see the dark blue are those who are very satisfied, the light blue is satisfied, the yellow is neutral, and we interpret neutral as meeting expectations. It's a rating of a 3 on the 5-point scale. And then the pink are those who are dissatisfied or very dissatisfied. So one of the things that really stands out here is the second row down, overall quality of city services. So again, here we're asking residents to kind of think big picture and rate all the services that you provide. And you can see that 84% of respondents are either very satisfied or satisfied, and that's compared to only 3% who are dissatisfied. So that's one of the best ratios in the country, those who are satisfied versus dissatisfied with the overall quality of city services. Here we ask residents to rate other aspects of quality of life in the city. And really one of the things that stands out here is how few people give a rating of below average or poor for any of these areas. People are very satisfied with all different aspects. And the areas that rate the highest are Auburn as a place to live and as a place to raise children. For each of those, well over 90% of respondents gave a rating of excellent or good, and only 2% gave a rating of below average or poor. Now, this was the very first question on the survey. Here we asked residents to rate major categories of city services. So here we're asking residents to rate these areas at the big picture departmental level. And then later on in the survey, we asked them to rate some more specific areas within some of these categories. So one of the things that stands out here is how few residents are dissatisfied with most of these areas. Other than traffic flow, for every single other area, less than 20% of residents were dissatisfied, and in most cases, it's even 10% or less. Now, the lowest rated area is traffic flow, but even for that, you have well over 40% of respondents who are either very satisfied or satisfied, compared to 28% who are dissatisfied. And these satisfaction ratings have improved since we last conducted the survey a couple of years ago. And it's also not unusual for a fast-growing community to have traffic flow be their lowest rated area. Now, the highest rated areas are the quality of police, fire, and ambulance services, the school system, garbage, recycling, and yard waste collection, and then library services. For each of those, you have over 85% of respondents who are either very satisfied or satisfied, and then 5% or less who are dissatisfied. Now, here we have a map of the city. And what we did here is broke these results down by census block group. So these are very small areas. And what this does is it tells us if residents in different parts of the city are rating services differently. Now, we created a map like this for every question on the survey, asked on a 5-point scale. So there's over 100 maps in the report. There's just a couple I wanted to go over today. This first map is for the overall quality of services provided by the city. And you can see the entire map is blue. In fact, in some of the map area, it's dark blue, which is the highest possible rating. So what this tells us is that residents in all parts of the city are satisfied with the overall quality of city services. Now, sometimes what happens is, even if the satisfaction ratings are very high overall, once you break the results into these small census block groups, you see some pockets where areas where residents might be dissatisfied. So every time the entire map is blue, it means you're doing a great job providing services equally throughout the city. Now, this map is for Auburn as a place to live. Here you can see the entire map is dark blue, which means residents in all parts of the city are very satisfied with the city of Auburn as a place to live. So I mentioned earlier that satisfaction with city services is much higher in Auburn than it is in other communities. So we'll take a look at some specific examples of that. Now, for these next few charts, the blue line are Auburn residents who are either very satisfied or satisfied, and then the yellow line are the satisfaction ratings from residents all across the U.S. Now, this first chart is for major categories of city services. And as we go through these, I put blue arrows by places where you rate significantly higher than the national average. So in other words, 5% or more. And there's no areas where you rate significantly below the national average. But if you did, it would have a red arrow. So you can see here, just about every area you rate significantly higher than the national average. There's a few areas I especially wanted to point out. If you look at customer service, you have a 74% satisfaction rating. The national average is only 42%. And then if you look below that, communication with the public, you have a 74% satisfaction rating. National average is only 46%. Now, the only area that rates below the national average is traffic flow, but even that is not much below. You have a 47% satisfaction rating, which is actually up about 5% from the last survey. So it's headed in the right direction. But the national average is only 51%. So you're really pretty much on par with other communities. Here are comparisons for perceptions of the city. There's two areas I especially wanted to point out here. The second row down shows the overall quality of city services. You have an 84% satisfaction rating, and the national average is below 50%. So this is one of the highest rated areas in the country, your quality of overall city services. And then the other one I want to point out is the second row from the bottom, value received for city tax dollars and fees. You have a 75% satisfaction rating, which is about double the national average, which is outstanding. So not only are your residents extremely satisfied with the services that you're providing, but they feel like they're getting excellent value for what they're paying. And then here's some more comparisons for perceptions of the city. And you can see you rate much higher than other communities as a place to live, as a place to raise children, and as a place to work. We also asked about city leadership, and you can see that 63% of respondents are either very satisfied or satisfied with the overall quality of leadership provided by the city's elected officials. With the national average is only 38%. So you're 25 percentage points above the national average in that area. You're also 25 percentage points above the national average when it comes to the effectiveness of the city manager. And then you also rate much higher than the national average when it comes to the level of public involvement in local decisions. Now, we rated 11 different areas of public safety. For every single one of them, you rate significantly higher than the national average. In fact, in each case, you rate more than 10 percentage points above the national average. One of the areas that really stands out here the most is the overall quality of police protection. You have a 92% satisfaction rating, and you can see that the national average is below 70%. We also rated 8 different areas of city maintenance, and you can see in all these areas, you also rate significantly higher than the national average. And this covers a wide variety of different things: maintenance of streets, sidewalks, traffic signals, overall cleanliness of streets, a lot of different categories covered here. And then here are the comparisons for garbage, recycling, sewer, and water services. And once again, in all these areas, you rate much higher than the national average. In this case, you rate more than 20 percentage points above the national average for all 6 of these areas. And then for communication, you also rate much higher than the national average in all 3 areas that we compared, which includes the city's website, the availability of information about city programs and services, and then social media. So we also compared these results to previous years. Now, overall, the satisfaction ratings are down a little bit compared to 2018, but overall, they're significantly higher than the first year that we conducted the survey back in 2006. So here are a list of the biggest increases and decreases in satisfaction compared to 2018. So a lot of the biggest increases are related to recycling. So we have the curbside recycling, material types accepted for recycling, collection of garbage, recycling and yard waste, the overall effectiveness of communication with the public, has had a big increase. Recycling at the city's drop-off recycling center. And then traffic flow also is one of the areas that had one of the biggest increases in satisfaction compared to 2018. Now, the biggest decreases compared to a couple of years ago are community centers, new residential development, walking trails, outdoor athletic fields, the overall appearance of downtown, and senior programs. So a lot of these are related to parks and recreation, but I know there's a lot of ongoing improvements right now, such as the new community center that's being built. So I imagine these ratings will be much higher over the next few years. Now here are comparisons for major categories of city services. And you can see here we have the satisfaction ratings for 2020, 2018, and 2006. So there's 3 areas that have had a significant increase in satisfaction going back to 2018, which is collection of garbage, recycling, and yard waste. The satisfaction ratings increased from 82 up to 90%. We also had a significant increase in communication with the public. You can see the satisfaction ratings increased by 8 percentage points going back to 2018, and it's up 14 percentage points going back to 2006. And then the other area that's had a significant increase in satisfaction is traffic flow, which is up from 42 to 47%. The only area that's had a significant decrease in satisfaction is parks and recreation. It's went from 82 down to 77%. But again, I know there's a lot of improvements in the works, so I would expect those numbers to really increase over the next couple of years. So now we'll take a look at the top priorities for the community. You probably remember this from previous years. This is what we call the important satisfaction rating. And this analysis is based on 2 different types of data. First, we ask residents how satisfied they are with city services. And then the follow-up question is, which of these services are the most important for the city to emphasize? So the idea behind this is that those areas that have a combination of a low satisfaction rating but are also rated as the most important should be the highest priorities. So this first chart is for major categories of city services. And here, by far, the top 2 priorities are traffic flow and then maintenance of city infrastructure. And those were the top 2 priorities on the last survey as well. Now, this is really just a different way of looking at the same information. So for this table, if you start to the right, those are the areas that are rated as the most important. And as you move left, the level of importance gets less and less. Now, if you start at the top of this chart, those are the areas with the highest satisfaction rating. And then as you move down, the satisfaction gets less and less. So if you look in this bottom right-hand quadrant where it says opportunities for improvement, those are the areas that have that combination of a low satisfaction rating, but also rated as the most important. So those are really your top priorities. And you can see that includes maintenance of city infrastructure and then traffic flow. So we also create these important satisfaction tables for some specific areas. This one is for maintenance, and you can see here the top 2 priorities are the maintenance of streets and then the adequacy of city street lighting. This is for public safety. Now you'll notice here that there's nothing that falls into the high or very high priority category. And the reason for that is that the satisfaction ratings are so high, really across the board. So there's no areas for concern here. But having said that, the highest priority is efforts to prevent crime. For code enforcement, here the highest priorities are the cleanup of overgrown and weedy lots. And the second highest priority is efforts to remove dilapidated structures. For parks and recreation, here the highest priorities are senior programs, walking trails, community recreation centers, and parks. And then for downtown Auburn, here by far the #1 priority is availability of parking. Residents rate that as significantly more important than any of the other 10 items on the list. Now, there were a few questions that were asked for the first time on the survey this year, so I wanted to go over those questions. We asked residents, compared to other city priorities, How important is it for the City of Auburn to invest in the acquisition and rehabilitation of historically significant buildings for public use? So you can see here that 65% of respondents feel this is either extremely or somewhat important, compared to 12% who say it's either somewhat or extremely unimportant. We asked residents which of these services should receive the most emphasis for funding over the next 2 years, and residents could pick up to 3 of these 5 items. So you can see the areas that they feel should receive the most funding are city infrastructure, public schools, and public safety. And then we asked residents, how satisfied are you with the availability of internet service in your neighborhood? So you can see that 67% of respondents are either very satisfied or satisfied, compared to 18% who are dissatisfied or very dissatisfied. So just a quick recap. We saw that residents have a very positive perception of the city. These numbers are some of the very highest in the country. Well over 90% of respondents feel Auburn is an excellent or a good place to live and to raise children. Once again, the satisfaction with city services is significantly higher than other communities. A couple of the areas that really stand out are the overall quality of city services, customer service, then tax value for value received for taxes and fees was another area that really rated significantly higher than other communities. And the top overall priorities are traffic flow and maintenance of city infrastructure. So that is everything that I had. Normally this is the time where I would answer any questions, but I believe you'll have the opportunity to email questions to me, and I'll answer those just as quickly and as thoroughly as I can. So that is everything that I had for today. So thank you everyone very much for your time.